Hi, and welcome back to this channel. Today we are speaking about the explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the event that changed the fate of the Soviet Union and the perception of nuclear energy among people around the world. In this video, we'll discuss the causes that led to the disaster, the chronicle of the tragic day, and the consequences that the nuclear explosion caused. What led to the catastrophe? The Chernobyl nuclear power plant, located near the city of Pripyat in the Ukrainian SSR, was a crucial component of the Soviet Union's energy sector. Commissioned in the 1970s, it played a significant role in meeting the growing electricity demands of the region. The plant consisted of 4 reactors, each capable of producing a capacity of 1,000 megawatts. Chernobyl nuclear power plant was seen as a symbol of Soviet technological prowess and a source of national pride. The RBMK reactor employed at Chernobyl was unique to the Soviet Union. It utilized graphite as a moderator and water as a coolant, making it distinct from other reactor designs in the world. The use of graphite allowed the reactor to operate at higher power levels, while the water-cooled channels contained the fuel assemblies. The RBMK design had certain advantages, such as its efficiency and fuel flexibility, but it also had inherent safety flaws. During the 1980s, the Soviet Union aimed to bolster its industrial growth and meet the rising energy demands. Nuclear power was regarded as a key solution, and Chernobyl played a crucial role in achieving these objectives. However, the political climate of the time was characterized by a centralized and bureaucratic system, which exerted pressure on production quotas and expedited construction schedules. Also, the reactor operators had limited training and experience, and safety culture was often overshadowed by the pursuit of meeting production targets. The regulatory framework lacked independence and transparency, leading to inadequate oversight. Combined with design flaws and the absence of adequate safety measures, these operational conditions created a precarious environment within the plant. Chronicle of the Chernobyl disaster. On the fateful day of April 26, 1986, a planned safety test was initiated at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant's Reactor 4. The test was intended to simulate a power outage and assess the viability of using the turbine's residual rotational energy to power the reactor's coolant pumps until emergency generators came online. However, a series of critical errors and design flaws during the test set the stage for disaster. As the test began, operators triggered a shutdown of several safety systems, including the emergency cooling system. This, combined with a flawed reactor design, caused a sudden and uncontrollable power surge. The fuel rods overheated, leading to a steam explosion that ruptured the reactor vessel and caused a subsequent graphite fire. The explosion released a massive amount of radioactive materials into the atmosphere. In the immediate aftermath of the explosion, plant personnel faced a catastrophic situation. Despite the severe damage and high radiation levels, courageous workers risked their lives to contain the situation. Firefighters, unaware of the radiation dangers, battled the graphite fire and attempted to extinguish the flames using helicopters and fire trucks. Local authorities were initially unaware of the magnitude of the disaster. However, as radiation alarms sounded across the region and reports of the explosion reached higher levels of government, the response became more coordinated. Plant management, civil defense officials, and military personnel were mobilized to assess the situation, establish communication, and provide support. As the severity of the disaster became apparent, the decision to evacuate nearby towns and cities was made. Pripyat, a city of approximately 49,000 residents just a few kilometers away, was evacuated on April 27, 1986, nearly 36 hours after the explosion. Residents were told to leave their homes with only a few belongings, as they were assured they would return soon. The evacuation extended to a wider radius, encompassing other affected areas and resulting in the relocation of hundreds of thousands of people. The decision to evacuate was driven by the rapidly increasing radiation levels and the need to protect the population from further exposure. Immediate consequences. The explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant led to the release of a significant amount of radioactive materials into the atmosphere. These materials included isotopes of iodine, cesium, strontium, and plutonium, among others. The radioactive plume spread over a large area, affecting not only the immediate vicinity but also reaching other parts of Europe. The immediate consequences were devastating, resulting in the loss of lives, widespread contamination, and environmental damage. Immediate efforts were undertaken to contain the radiation and prevent its further spread. Firefighters, plant workers, and soldiers were deployed to extinguish the fires and minimize the release of radioactive particles. Helicopters dropped sand, lead, and other materials on the burning reactor to control the fire and contain the radioactive particles. Efforts were also made to cover the damaged reactor with a concrete sarcophagus to prevent the release of additional radioactive materials. In the aftermath of the disaster, an exclusion zone was established around the Chernobyl plant, encompassing an area of approximately 30 kilometers in radius. This zone was meant to restrict access to the highly contaminated areas. Liquidators, a diverse group of workers including firefighters, military personnel, plant workers, and volunteers, were mobilized to carry out the cleanup and mitigation efforts. They were involved in tasks such as decontamination, removal of radioactive debris, and construction of protective structures. The Chernobyl disaster had a profound impact on the health of workers, emergency responders, and the affected population. The immediate radiation exposure led to acute radiation sickness, with some individuals succumbing to radiation-related injuries and burns. The long-term health effects were also significant, with an increased incidence of various cancers, particularly thyroid cancer in children exposed to radioactive iodine. The long-term effects of the Chernobyl explosion. The Chernobyl disaster had a profound and long-lasting environmental impact on the surrounding areas. The release of radioactive materials contaminated the soil, water, and vegetation, leading to significant ecosystem disruption. The contamination spread through air currents and rainfall, affecting not only the immediate vicinity but also areas far beyond the exclusion zone. The high levels of radiation resulted in the death of plants and animals, genetic mutations, and reduced biodiversity. The long-term effects on the environment included changes in plant and animal populations and radioactive contamination persisting in the soil and water for years. The disaster resulted in the displacement of thousands of residents from their homes and communities. The immediate evacuation of Pripyat and nearby towns was followed by the relocation of residents from other affected areas within and beyond the exclusion zone. The contaminated towns were deemed uninhabitable, leading to their abandonment and the establishment of exclusion zones. The displacement had a profound psychological and social impact on the affected individuals and communities, as they faced the loss of their homes, communities, and way of life. The relocation and resettlement process presented numerous challenges, including finding suitable housing, employment, and integrating into new communities. The aftermath and long-term effects of the Chernobyl disaster continue to be felt decades later. The environmental, health, socioeconomic, and human consequences serve as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of nuclear accidents and the importance of stringent safety measures in the nuclear industry. Lessons learned for humanity. The Chernobyl disaster had a profound impact on nuclear safety regulations and practices worldwide. It served as a wake-up call for the international community, leading to significant changes in nuclear safety standards and practices. The International Atomic Energy Agency played a crucial role in coordinating international efforts and establishing guidelines for nuclear safety. Safety regulations were strengthened, including improvements in reactor design, emergency preparedness, operator training, and independent regulatory oversight. The importance of transparency, sharing information, and learning from accidents was emphasized. The Chernobyl disaster had a significant impact on public perception of nuclear energy. It eroded public trust and raised concerns about the safety and risks associated with nuclear power. The event highlighted the catastrophic consequences of a nuclear accident and fueled debates about the viability and sustainability of nuclear energy. Some countries reconsidered their nuclear energy plans, placing greater emphasis on renewable energy sources and energy efficiency. Decades after the disaster, efforts to decommission and manage the Chernobyl site continue. The damaged reactor was enclosed in a massive concrete sarcophagus, known as the Chernobyl shelter, to prevent further release of radioactive materials. However, due to structural deterioration, a new confinement structure called the New Safe Confinement was built and successfully slid into place over the damaged reactor in 2016. Ongoing efforts also include monitoring and mitigation of radiation levels in the exclusion zone, environmental remediation, and research on the long-term effects of radiation exposure. Recently, only one event was able to disrupt this course of things. when the Russian army captured the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in early 2022 as a result of fighting with the Ukrainian army. But soon Ukraine regained control over this important object. The legacy of the Chernobyl disaster serves as a constant reminder of the importance of prioritizing safety, rigorous regulation, transparency, and public participation in the development and operation of nuclear facilities.